Welcome to the Inspiring Coaches Show, the podcast devoted to inspiring coaches to bring their professional dreams to life by revealing the knowledge, insights, and best practices of other inspiring coaches. I'm your host, Jen Anderson, Master Certified Coach, early settler of the coaching industry, lover of all things coaching, and what coaching is doing to make the world a better place. Well, hello out there. Welcome back. And normally I start every one of these podcast episodes, and of course, all of my coaching sessions, asking a coach, what can we celebrate from your world of coaching? This time I'm actually going to change it up a little bit because there's something that I have been long awaiting that has happened in the world of coaching, and I really want to celebrate it, which is that the ICF has released the new version of the credentialing exam that is appropriate for ACCs and their level of experience as coaches. And that got released, my understanding is on November 18th. So we're taping this on November 20th. So it's brand new. And I'm really happy about this because I think it makes it a more supportive and meaningful and valuable learning experience for the ACC level coach. So I just want to celebrate that. So yay. And thank you, ICF, for recognizing different levels of experience require different levels of exam for the credentialing. Okay, so as always, though, dear listeners, I would love it if you would send me a celebration from your world of coaching, anything at all, a couple of sentences, of course, keeping confidentiality in mind. But if you could send your celebration to Jennifer at coachingoutofthebox.com, that would be wonderful. I would love to feature you in an upcoming episode. Okay, well, get ready to be inspired, listeners. I am so excited about this conversation I'm about to have because our guest today was named by CNN's iReport as one of America's top coaches. So that's who we get to hang out with during this time. Lyn Allen has been a master certified coach for over 25 years and has served as an ICF assessor, as well as a faculty member and mentor coach for several coach training programs. Lyn's also facilitated the implementation of coaching cultures and coach training for leaders on, get this, 5 continents. Can you say experience? She works with collaborative leaders and culture shapers who are ready to foster cultures of resilience, transformative conversations, and emotional responsibility. Blending neuroscience with ancient traditions and solid in the trenches experience, Lyn helps clients explore possibilities within the intersection of peace and achievement. And I always tell when somebody's an MCC because they have something like that in their bio. For the personal stuff, I'm going to share that Lyn lives on a remote 52-acre homestead in the Ozarks with one man and a varying number of sheep, goats, chickens, and peafowl. Plus, if you can hear her laughing, plus a few dogs and cats thrown in for good measure, who remind her daily to breathe deeply, love courageously, and delight in the unfolding of sacred mystery. So Lyn is joining us today to talk about what's currently most inspiring to her in her work as a coach, how to rethink resilience in an age of uncertainty. So to get you warmed up for what will no doubt be a thought-provoking conversation, Lyn has shared this piece of wisdom. We think resilience is about being able to keep on keeping on, or the ability to get back up when you stumble and fall. This is an outdated perspective we need to change because it's hurting us. So while you're pondering that, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our inspiring sponsor, and then we'll be right back with Lyn Allen.
Hello, listeners. This is a special message from the International Coaching Group. We're thrilled to have you with us today on the Inspiring Coaches Show. If you're in search of an ICF accredited coach educator, look no further. Our flagship 555 coaching skills training program has been taught to over 45,000 people in over 38 countries. Additionally, our signature Fast Track to ICF credential program has been a key reason why both individuals and corporations choose the International Coaching Group to support their coaching skills, training, and coaching journeys. Ready to take the next step? Visit www.coachingoutofthebox.com to learn more or schedule a call with one of our enrollment coaches. We're here to support you every step of the way. Don't wait, start your coaching journey today.
All right, well, welcome back. And as a quick reminder, today we're being inspired by our guest, Lyn Allen, MCC, on the topic of how to rethink resilience in an age of uncertainty. So welcome, Lyn.
Thanks so much, Jen. I am so happy to be here. You know that coaches hold a really special place in my heart and have for several decades now.
Yes, I do know that. Actually, it's kind of interesting because as we were introduced, technically introduced by someone, because we've even worked for the same coach training organizations in the past, but never actually intersected to a point where we had a conversation. But I learned that about you in our recent conversation, how much you really do care about coaches. It shows. Yeah. So it's just a thrill to be here with you. And if it's okay with you, I want to get right to it with a
Oh,
really
let's jump in.
powerful question. Okay, so your quote. So, how is the perspective of get back up when you stumble and fall? How is that hurting us?
Ooh, that's such a gorgeous question. It can be based in, or the mindset behind it, I should say, can be based in the old over control, conquer, dominate culture. So, what that means in everyday language and practical application is if you stumble and fall because you're exhausted, because you have been keeping on for so long that you're depleted and you're forcing yourself to get back up and keep going, you are exerting power over yourself and attempting to conquer, dominate yourself and the situation. That's a setup for burnout.
Mhm. So, this mindset of conquer, dominate, control is nothing new,
Mhm.
right? We've both been on earth a while in the coaching community for
Right,
over
right.
25 to 30 years. So it's alive and well out there.
Mm,
And I see what you're saying with it. I really do. It's a quest I've actually been on through my own coaching with my coach over the last several years, which is the fall tends to be a really busy time. And if I'm not careful, I can go into that place of overwhelm, which leads to decision fatigue, which leads to eventually,
mhm.
finally, ultimately taking, having the space to relax, but it turns into being sick. And so I've actually been working on that, but I don't know that everybody has the luxury of that in their life and their world, right? To not fall into that mindset. So I know you want to say something. I'm going to be quiet.
Yeah, I get really excited about this.
Hmm.
So yes, when we look at the realities of our lives, and I just had a conversation Monday, I think, with someone newly promoted in an expanding level of responsibility in their organization. The organization is at this path, its journey, a compilation organizations. So they're in the process of assimilating and trying to like curate a cohesive culture. But right now it's like herding cats. So and they're also trying to grow while they're at it. So so everybody there is running full out, flat out every day, all day, with a lot of travel because that's part of their business as well. So, uh, and they're not the only ones. So, let me offer you this as context because our brains really appreciate context. It helps us assign meaning to our lived experience and find a generative or useful meaning for what we're living. So I'm big on context. I think we live in a culture that goes beyond this country. I think we live in a culture of unquestioned urgency, and it's been in place for so long that it is a culture of habituated urgency.
Oh,
In other words, we think it's normal to run flat out all the time.
yeah.
And the reality, as we know, our biology was wired for us to be able to sprint, but not to live in sprint mode as a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this running all the time does several things. It has us living from that place of chronic stress, which in turn causes a cascade of issues in the body and in cognition, and in relationships and just general life. So if we can look at the situations in which we find ourselves through this lens of culture and drop into the moment and drop into ourselves sufficiently to question. So if we want to get really concrete, I'm going to say, write this down, everybody listening. Here's your first tip. And as coaches, you already know this, and that is question everything.
Mm-hmm.
Not for the sake of being obstructive, but for the sake of practicing curiosity. So question everything. So if you find yourself in this go do push mode, out of habit and thinking that you have no choice, there's no way you can find a slower gear, that you can cover all the bases that are clamoring to be covered. Um, that is actually as counterintuitive as this seems, as much as it goes against the instincts of every fiber of your being, that is the place to pause.
Mm.
When you feel that intensity of go, do, push, run, 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 that is the place to go, wait, hang on. I'm in that pattern of reflexive and habitual pushing.
Mm.
So stop, take a deep breath, reset your nervous system so that you can be more effectively internally resourced.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know that when we're in that chronic stress state, that some of the most critical resources we need may not be supported to function optimally. Namely, among other things, your prefrontal cortex, which is where creative resourcefulness, strategic thinking, critical thinking, and our ability to bond and connect all
Mm.
reside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things that we really need in today's world.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. So, okay, so I have a question for you. Because my perception is that it's not necessarily rewarded in most corporate cultures to take that pause. And I know one of the things that you're passionate about is supporting corporate cultures to shift
Mm-hmm.
and be more supportive of their employees. So how are you seeing that possibility as a coach in the world so that our listeners can really say, oh, maybe I can have some impact there?
I think neuroscience is really helping us out here. The more we are mainstreaming the conversation on nervous system regulation, the more we understand that we are actually hardwired to connect, and that one person in a room with a regulated nervous system can become what Meg Wheatley calls the island of sanity in the middle of the chaos.
Mm,
So instead of you getting caught up into everybody else's excited nervous system state, self-regulation and self-containment and observation so that you can notice, oh, hang on, I'm getting triggered into somebody else's state of agitation. That is not the best way for me to be of service. Let me just reconnect with myself. And you can hear, actually, I sort of instinctively slow down, drop my voice. I get lower and slower. So you can hear it in me. And coaches I know who are so practiced in listening to and attuning to their clients can hear that when it shows up in a client, or you can hear the opportunity for it to be practiced.
And just practically speaking, where I see that most often is the very beginning of the coaching session. So if it's Zoom or in person or whatever, there's that moment where it almost feels like the client just came skidding into the session, and like the whole world, their whole world came in with them into this, what we sometimes call a sacred space as a coaching session. And so if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying is one way that we as coaches can be a positive influence in this direction is to offer it to our clients to slow down a bit. And we can do that simply with our way of being, our presence.
Exactly.
To use our competency.
Exactly. Yeah. So that it's really incumbent upon us as coaches to be aware of the signals our bodies are giving us so that we can know if we are regulated, we can know if we have capacity in the moment to be the space holder, to be the invitation. I've heard this phrase, and I'm probably going to get the author's name wrong, so forgive me. Daria Rubenfeld has written a gorgeous book on forgiveness. And she uses a phrase, I think she gives attribution to someone else, but that's where I heard it. Call them in before you call them out. So if you have someone coming into a coaching session or a meeting or, coming in to engage, and you feel as if someone should be waving the checkered flag for them as they cross the finish line coming in the door, that's a good indication that they may not yet be fully present. They may not be present in themselves, let alone in the room or on the call with you.
Right.
Sure, your new nervous system does not mirror their nervous system, but instead practice your ways of being present, to use your language. Practice your curiosity, use your questions, use your acknowledging to and call them in, and then we can ask permission and say, would it be okay if I share something I'm noticing? Or, gosh, it sounds like you really, really are rushing to get here. It sounds like you've had a full day. Is there something there for us to talk about? Naming what you're observing rather than stepping over it, while still giving the client choice as to whether or not that's where to put some of the focus in the session.
Yes, because they get to choose that.
They get
You're
to choose.
reminding me of really kind of this idea that we share with newer coaches, which is that there's coaching isn't just a doing something, right? It isn't this set of skills where we're just simply, we're going to ask about what would you like to be coached on today and what would you like to get from this session. There's this whole aspect of being coach-like in this, and that's what I'm really hearing embedded within the possibility you're creating for us of being with our clients in this way. Oh shoot, there was something else I was going to ask you about with this. So thinking about it from shifting a corporate culture perspective, because I know a lot of people come into coaching and they're internal coaches, right? They're within these organizations, they know what's going on. And a lot of times they're in HR, so they really have firsthand understanding of the pressures that are put on people. What possibilities have you been able to really address within organizations to shift the culture around this?
The possibilities exist in each conversation. So think of it as using conversation that you are planting seeds of change or offering new possibilities, one conversation at a time.
Mm. So not making a
And
big deal out of it, not necessarily saying, hey, we got to shift this entire culture pronto, which is kind of feeding into, now that I'm hearing myself say it, the
yeah,
push do. Uh,
in fact, here's part of where my passion for resilience and for my approach to coaching originated. Working, coaching leaders in federal U.S. government agencies, and often coaching mid-level managers who are sandwiched, right? And if you're familiar with how U.S. federal agencies work, every 2 to 4 years, there's a turnover of top management because all of the top leaders
mm-hmm,
in federal agencies are appointees, political appointees.
mm-hmm,
So it's a revolving door in terms of senior leadership. Often, senior leadership that hits the door with no small presence of colonialism. We're going to do it my way now. I'm here. We're going to do it my way. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
And often untrained in leadership, again, because they're political appointees. And they're only there to pad their resumes or to get the person who appointed them, get that agenda through.
Right.
So what it means is all of the career public servants and anybody listening who works with other kinds of leaders, notice how this translates from the public to the private sector. In any organization, you're likely to have career employees, people who really want to be there for the long haul. And so as senior level leadership is turning over, these people are like caught in the tides of change. And, with one administration, they're told, well, we're going to lean in this direction. And with another, they're going to be told, we'll lean in this direction. I certainly experienced it in my corporate career when we had reorgs and new senior leadership would come in. And all of a sudden, the entire culture of a division would change overnight,
Mm-hmm.
causing. So my objective is to support the people who are going to be there after the latest crop of new leaders is gone.
Mm. Oh.
We can stabilize culture at that level and have the culture so anchored, not rigid, but so grounded, so robust
Uh-huh.
that when new leadership comes in, the new leaders are invited into culture. We're there, know how to invite new leaders into an existing culture,
Mm-hmm.
and don't feel that they are so much like being held hostage to the whims of the latest crop of leaders.
Okay. Okay. So Lynn, I want to tie this in. I think there's a connection here. You can tell me if I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
But I know that one of the things that you put in the notes for today was around becoming the change or being the change.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it feels like there's you could point us to something really kind of profound here. So what do you want
Okay.
to say?
Thanks. So, we've all been hearing this phrase, be the change you want to see in the world since
Mhm,
Gandhi, right? I'm going to ask you to be the change. I'm going to ask you to change be to become. Usually, in order to be, there is a process of becoming, so that we
mm,
can get to the being. So, become the change, BTC, and use that acronym BTC to remind you of 3 things that significantly impact, well, everything: resilience, stress, burnout, culture, you name it.
mhm.
B is biology. We forget that we are biological beings, or that we are living in a biological vessel, and we tend, I think, culturally, in terms of collective mindset, I think we overlook the impact our body on us, and the impact we can have on our biology. We know that if we're dehydrated, we can become cognitively sluggish. We can become irritable. We become foggy. We know that if we have a low blood sugar or erratic blood sugar, that can impact mood, outlook, energy, cognition. If we're exhausted, if we're not getting quality rest, mood, outlook, energy, relationships, communication, capacities to tolerate what we need to tolerate in the world. So our tolerance thresholds drop when our biology is in a state of need, especially advancing need. So biology is the B, become the change, B, biology. T, trauma. In the past decade, we finally started seeing trauma, individualized trauma, ancestral trauma, collective trauma begin to move more into the zeitgeist. We're becoming more aware of what trauma really is, how prevalent it is. Thomas Hubel, who's doing phenomenal work in collective trauma, suggests that we are born into a traumatized world.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
So we now know trauma can impact us genetically. It can impact gene expression, which can
Epigenetics.
epigenetics. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we also know that these genetic changes are carried forward across generations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's been confirmed in the lab that these changes can show up for up to 5 generations down the line.
Mm.
Right. And it's also been suggested that it could actually be up to 12. So here's the thing. You may be able to recognize the trauma you're experiencing in your life, be able to name, articulate, acknowledge your traumas. You may even have some idea of traumas that your parents experienced, and maybe even your grandparents. But beyond that, for many of us, we're really not in touch with that because trauma wasn't even articulated for those generations for the most part.
No, I
So,
think they called it life.
yeah, they did. They called it life. And it was, suck it up and get on with it.
Mm-hmm.
So we now know that trauma impacts resilience. It impacts our capacity to trust. It impacts our sense of identity. Like it can impact everything. So BTC, become the change. B is biology, T is trauma, and C is cultural imprint. So we are imprinted by culture from before the time of birth, really.
Mm.
Even in utero, we're being influenced by the dynamics in the immediate world around us. And if we remember that the dynamics in the world around us have already been influenced by, wait for it, biology and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what I call the unhappiness trifecta.
Mm.
Biology, trauma, and culture, because they can come together and create this perfect storm.
Mm.
So what does this mean for us as coaches working with leaders at all levels, including people who are leading themselves, maybe leading from behind or leading from beside, right? So leadership can take a lot of forms. How do we support people with being resilient? Well, first I would offer an updated definition or framing for resilience. Instead of resilience is the ability to keep going when things get tough. Instead of thinking that resilience is based in stamina and strength, think of it as the ability to return to a state of homeostasis. So a state of, think of it as balance.
Mm-hmm.
So biological balance, emotional balance, spiritual balance, whatever that is for you. And the way we do that most effectively, most sustainably, is by being able to maintain a connection to ourselves, no matter what is going on within us or around us or to us.
Mm.
So the updated understanding of resilience that I'm offering is that it is not about strength and stamina. It is about your capacity to remain connected to yourself no matter what, so that you have access to all of your onboard resources.
Boy, oh boy, if that's not a great possibility for being coached and growing within. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. So it comes right down to the individual and individual choices you're making in the moment. It comes to role modeling and being that beacon for people in those situations where they don't even know they're looking for a beacon, but they see you and suddenly they realize. So the meetings. I'm just seeing so much of what you're offering here in terms of, sometimes it doesn't feel as though I'm just one person. How can I possibly, have that kind of impact? And here it is. I mean, you've outlined it for us.
Here's what I would offer for that. We now know, thank you, neuroscience, one word can change brain chemistry. One word spoken can change brain chemistry. Changing brain chemistry causes a cascade of reactions in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we know this as coaches, and we know the power of transformative conversation, and we really intentionally hone our skills with transformative conversation, then that has incredible potential to change the world one conversation at a time.
One of my favorite thoughts about coaching. We're changing the world one conversation at a time. Well, this is interesting because I've noticed myself using the word possibility with you over and over and over
Yes.
again in this podcast. So I'm going to be thinking about that one word and how it's changing my brain chemistry. So thank you for that last little nugget there. And
You're welcome.
Lyn, I love to ask every guest, what's your next stretch as a coach? What's inspiring you to move forward?
The integration of, like, a next level of integration of spirit and cognition. So I think integrated leadership, born of integrated living.
Mm. Well, I can't wait to hear where you're going with that. I just saw some
So for
interesting.
people who speak that language, think heart coherence, think brain coherence, heart brain coherence. So the integration of, again, our onboard resources and our ability to continue developing them.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So okay. If I ask you another question, we're never going to finish this. So I'm going to leave it there for right now. And thank you so much. But if you'll hang on for just a second, I want to more formally thank you. But we're gonna pause right now for another message from our inspiring sponsor.
Sure.
Hey there, leaders! Are you ready to turn those tough conversations into purposeful and productive ones that drive real growth? I'm thrilled to introduce you to our Coach Approach to Leadership series. This is where you can learn the skills to communicate effectively, be heard, and make lasting, positive changes in your business. Imagine a conversation where you feel confident in what to ask, you truly listen, and you provide feedback that motivates action. That's exactly what we'll work on together in this program. Got questions? No worries, our enrollment coaches are here to support you every step of the way. Book a call with us today and discover how to transform your conversations and your leadership style. It's time to inspire growth, build real trust, and turn every interaction into a powerful, productive experience.
All right. Well, Lyn, this has just been fascinating. Thank you so much. I didn't know I was going to be thinking with so many aspects of who I am in this moment in this conversation, but you definitely walk the talk with all of this. So for those of you out there listening, you can see that we have incredibly inspiring guests, and maybe you are one of our next upcoming guests. I'd love to hear from you. So if you have an idea for how you'd like to come on the Inspiring Coaches Show, inspire coaches to make their dreams come to life, please send me just a note with what your topic might be, what's inspiring you as a coach, and a couple of ways that you think it might be inspiring to other coaches. Again, my email is jennifer@coachingoutofthebox.com. Love to hear from you. And don't forget about celebrations as well. Would really love to feature your celebrations on the podcast. So as we all know, and you all know, if you've listened to repeated episodes, we are grateful in our coaching community, and we express that gratitude because it does change people. So I want to thank our inspiring guest coach today, Lyn Allen. Lyn, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with all of us.
Thank you so much for inviting me into this space and trusting me with your listeners. I'm honored.
Oh, well, there was never a shred of doubt that you would take good care of us. And I'm very excited that no longer are we parallel playing, right? Now we've intersected, and we'll continue, hopefully, to help each other grow, right? And explore new territory. Yeah, me too. Me too. Good. Well, I just also want to thank the International Coaching Group, who is indeed our inspiring sponsor. But most of all, I want to thank you out there, our listeners. You're here and you're listening, and it's because you're committing yourself to really, really finding that inspiration that will help you to make your coaching dreams a reality in the world. So thank you for being here. And until next time, I'm Jen Anderson, Master Certified Coach, and this is the Inspiring Coaches Show.